Test, test. I'm on.
Test 3? Test?
Yep.
Okay. Hold on, this has like a little clip. Okay. Actually, no, I'll do this. All right, hi everybody and welcome. My name is Tony Negron and I'm the Executive Director for the Florida Wind Band, and we are so excited to see all of the friendly faces here in the audience today for a pre-concert chat. So today we're going to do something a little bit different. Normally it's myself and Matt and we kind of get a little bit close and personal, but thanks to the wonderful tech team at Palma, Ceia, can we give them a round of applause? Woo, woo, thank you guys. We are live and in stereo for everybody to hear. So today we're going to do a ravishing game that I like to call speed dating. And no need, we are all married here. So I'm going to start with the first person and go down, and you guys are going to kind of be like my guest audience, and we're going to see which candidate we like the best. So let's start with candidate number 1. In the blue vest, this is music director Matt McCutchen. Matt McCutchen, go ahead and give us a little insight as to how you titled the program Voices of America.
So, Christmas concerts and 4th of July concerts or patriotic concerts are both fun and difficult to put together because audiences have some favorites that they're hoping to hear, but once we've played them, we'd like to play other things. So this particular concert, we have some composers that you would absolutely expect. We have John Philip Sousa. It's not a patriotic concert without John Philip Sousa. We have composers that you probably haven't heard of, maybe William Grant Still, who is one of our more important composers, who's sort of been forgotten and is coming back. And significantly on this concert, we have 3 young, living, vibrant, right with us composers who are playing music, some of which has only been performed once or twice before, and they're all sitting to my right. They are all terrific musicians. They all have Tampa ties. They all have USF ties. And it was titled American Voices because you're going to hear some different things, some new thoughts and some new music that you haven't heard before, and we're very excited about that.
So now, before I go on to the next candidate, can you let us know a little bit about the Florida Wind Band as an organization, what our role is in the community, and why doing new music is so important for an organization like ours?
So, the Florida Wind Band, this is our adult ensemble. This is our professional ensemble. Everybody in the ensemble except for one has a degree in music. The one who doesn't have a degree in music will have a degree from Eastman in 4 years, so we count her because she's pretty extraordinary. This is an ensemble that literally rehearses one time and then plays concerts. It's full of just really terrific players, and it's a joy to work with. In addition, we have youth. We have 3 youth ensembles. We have one that meets at USF in the fall. We have 2 that meet at USF in the spring. We have chamber ensembles that play concerts. Our thought is that music, there's a statistic that I heard a couple years before COVID, which was that 95% of high school seniors who are in band and orchestra put down their instrument after their final high school concert and never touch it again. 95%, that's a stunning amount. And we believe that band music should be available from basically the first time you touch the horn until you can't hold it up anymore. So we're trying to provide all sorts of opportunities for people to play.
So now, if you've been following us for the past several years, you might know this already, but Matt and I have known each other for 16 years. And in our 16 years together, it has been a mission of mine to make him look a little more adorable and a little more cute. And doesn't his blue vest look awesome today? And when he gets on the podium, you'll see he's got some nice Americana socks too, a nice little feature. All right, so that is candidate number 1. Give him a round of applause. All right, candidate number 2, also with a very adorable red bow tie that I did not pick out, is John Dupuy. So John Dupuy is the composer of Pinnacle Fanfare Winds, Pinnacle Fanfare, which was written for Pinnacle Winds, which is another adult professional wind ensemble in Kansas City. So John, can you tell us a little bit about how you crafted the piece and how it has gotten to the place of where our audience is going to hear it today?
Yeah, well, at first I'd like to say that I'm happy to be a young, vibrant composer, so I appreciate those sentiments. I started writing this piece in December of this last year for John Carmichael, for his group, Pinnacle Winds in Kansas, and started writing that melody immediately when he asked me to write the piece for the group. And so I started writing it on the plane home, and he said, "We've got to write this thing really quick because we've got a concert coming up in February, and I'd like a 3-minute fanfare." And so I started writing the melody, and once I have that melody written, the rest of it kind of can start coming together. But I spend, I would say, at least 50% of the entire compositional process on getting that one melody down first. And if I can get that theme where it gets stuck in your head and everyone will memorize it and you'll hear it over and over again and you'll kind of whistle it going out today, like that's the kind of melody I wanted to write. And so once I had that, then I started crafting the rest of the piece and putting it together. And I originally sent him one version of it, and he said, "I like it a lot, let's do it." And then I was like, I don't like it a lot. So I started writing a little bit more and fixed it and crafted it a little bit more to my liking, and then finally sent him the final version. I think it was maybe just 2 weeks before they performed it. So that's the story of how the piece kind of came together.
So now this piece has only been performed once, and this will be the second performance?
Yes, so it was only performed once in Kansas City, and then this is the second performance by the Florida Wind Band, and it's already set to be published next year by Wingert Jones Publishers, and will be available worldwide for groups to perform and enjoy forever.
So for all of you out there wanting to start your own band, this is the guy that you're looking for. So now the fanfare is about 3 minutes. Can you tell me how long did it take you to create the entire work from start to finish, estimated, for us to hear these 3 minutes of music today?
I would say probably a month and a half, maybe a month to a month and a half, somewhere in that range. But of course, in the span of that is like a full-time day job, a full-time home job, being a parent of 3 kids. And so in the midst of all that, I also had to write this and also several other composition projects I'm working on at the same time. So I think if I sat down and just worked on it, that time would be a lot less. But also, I need to write something, then I need to sleep on it. I need to think on it. I need to think of some new chords. I need to listen to some other music. I need to come back to it. So it really is a longer, drawn-out process, because, at least for me as a composer, because I've just got to think on it. And sometimes you think on it and you sleep on it, and then things just start to happen. And that's kind of what happens with me compositionally.
Well, as a musician who has performed it and going to perform it again today, I'm really looking forward to the performance. So can we give a round of applause to candidate number 2, John Dupuis? All right, now on to candidate number 3. Alain Rodriguez just completed his master's degree at the University of South Florida. That is where Matt is the director of bands, in addition to his responsibilities with our youth ensembles and professional adult band. So Alain, you have arranged and created a composition called Fantasy on a Theme by Edwin Taylor. And Edwin, you're out there, can you give a little wave? He is the original crafter of the melody, and he wrote all of these home songs, and it's a collection of many, many melodies that are reminiscent of American history. And Alain was tasked with his final graduate project at USF to arrange this work and to take those themes and make it what you're going to hear today for the premiere. So Alain, tell us a little bit about what was that project like when Matt gave you the assignment?
Well, Dr. McCutchen and I were discussing, what it takes to be a complete conductor, a complete musician, a holistic human being. And so, from a career standpoint, we were trying to figure out, okay, well, what else can I do to, be a well-rounded conductor? And so that's where we started talking about composition, being on the other side of this field. I mean, I wouldn't be able to conduct if there weren't composers, right? So I wanted to just, see what that was like. And so I dipped my toes into conducting for about 3.5 months. I remember meeting with Edwin Taylor at a Starbucks across the street from USF. We had a lengthy conversation, probably like almost 3 hours. And, we talked about both of our lives and his music. And his inspirations for his music, and that allowed me to gather my inspirations for that music. And so I unlike these 2 young composers that are actual composers, this was the first time I was doing something like this, and so it was a lot of experimenting. It was almost like improvisation on my couch or on my desk or wherever I was, sitting with an iPad piano app and just, figure out, okay, will this sound good? This sounded good in my head. Oh, maybe it doesn't sound good on the software. And after about 3.5 months of just of sound exploration, I was able to come up with this fantasy, and so a fantasy is almost like a theme and variation. So you're gonna hear the first half of the piece is essentially almost a transcription of the original work, and then you start going into the different variations that I was able to come up with and just had a lot of fun with.
Well, I'm really looking forward to that piece as well because it opens with clarinets. And for most of you who are familiar with one of the biggest icons in American music, British, Percy Allen Granger, he does lots and lots of writing for saxophones and clarinets, and it just creates this really rich texture that almost makes you feel at home. So I know that you guys will definitely enjoy that. All right, a round of applause for Align. And our final candidate on speed dating today is Joshua Hobbs, band director at Mitchell High School and composer for The Red Feathered Soul. So can you dive into this piece a little bit and tell us how it came to be, who you wrote it for, and some of the thematic ideas in there?
Sure. So Red Feathered Soul came about when Ivan Wansley, who's a very well-known conductor and director in the state, approached me about writing a piece a couple years ago. He didn't know what the piece was going to be at that time, but he said, I want you to write something for me. TBD, we'll find out what it's going to be. Lo and behold, about a year or two after that, he approached me again. His mother had recently passed away, and he wanted to write a piece in her honor. So we sat down also at a Starbucks, so kind of weird how Starbucks is like supplying all these crazy music ideas. And at that meeting, he talked to me a lot about her life, about what she did, where she traveled, who she was as a person, so that I could be better informed as a composer in writing the piece. And at that time, it had only been a few months since she had passed, and the wounds were still very raw. He was emotional talking about it, and I could tell how much he missed her. So I have always been intrigued by the idea of seeing a cardinal in nature and what that represents as possibly being visited by a loved one. And that's what the piece was inspired by. I knew that it was going to have that kind of idea behind it. So there's a lot of moments in the piece, the beginning in particular, where you hear this kind of rush of woodwinds at the very top that kind of represents this flurry of birds flying around. Later you hear kind of this bird call happening across the band in the woodwind section as well. And within that context, Amazing Grace also is featured as well because she was a devout Baptist. She sang in the choir, and that was one of her favorite hymns. So at first, it's kind of hinted at, and then as the piece goes along, it kind of takes over and is one of the more prominent melodies in the whole piece.
Josh and I were talking about this yesterday, and what's wonderful about a concert experience that you're going to experience today is how Matt crafts the program to include things that you're familiar with, things that are new, things that you may be less familiar with. And what I loved about this piece is I lost my mom to cancer in 2010, and there's this moment of highs and lows in the slower section of the piece that every time we've rehearsed it and every time we played it, it just sentimentally chokes me up. And one of the great things about coming to concerts and experience music live is the emotions and the reflection and the time that you get to just kind of sit and unplug and be away from technology, and for all of us to be in this together. And I just really think it's a beautiful thing, and I'm looking forward to that cathartic moment today. So with that being said, candidate number 3. Yes, thank you. Well, that is about all that we have time for. We need to get our musicians on stage to get warmed up and ready for the concert. But before we let you go, take a moment to look in your programs. We've got all of the details about the exciting lineup of season 18. Also in your programs are all of our acknowledgments and exciting accomplishments that we did in season 17. And we look forward to sharing more of those accomplishments with you by our side in the future. So thank you all so much, and we'll see you at the end of the concert. Good afternoon and welcome to our concert this evening. My name is Tony Negron and I am the Executive Director and Principal Clarinet for the Florida Wind Band, and we are so thrilled to see you this evening. Before the concert begins, we'd like to take a moment and acknowledge our family of supporters who have made this concert and our season programming possible. The Hillsborough Arts Council, Pastor Debba Voicey, and the congregation here at Palma Presbyterian Church, our diamond sponsors, Edward Jones Financial Advisor Rich Lundahl, Platinum sponsors True Smiles Dental Studios, Shirley Perdomo and Brian Panetta. Gold sponsors Fidelity National Financial, Ken and Janet Watts, the Ross family, the Voss Delaney family, Uptown Cheapskate, and Derek Thomas. And of course, our silver, bronze, and support level sponsors that you can find in your programs. We would also like to take the opportunity to thank our artistic team, administrative staff, volunteers, and our fabulous board of directors. And of course, my colleagues, the fabulous musicians that you see in front of you. Can you give them a warm welcome? So looking ahead, our board of directors has outlined a focused and ambitious plan for next season, and we aim to grow our audiences, expand educational outreach in local schools, diversify our revenue through new partnerships and events, and continue supporting our musicians and delivering outstanding performances like you will hear today. These goals reflect our unwavering commitment to enriching lives through music, both on stage and throughout our community. If you're inspired by what you experienced today and want to make a lasting impact, I encourage you to consider joining our board of directors. And one of the best perks is that you get to work with me. In addition to that, I just want to give a huge thank you to the musicians and to the congregation here at Palma Presbyterian. Because of you, I have been nominated as a 40 under 40 business journal for Tampa Bay. Thank you. I am very excited and hope I make the honoree list. Now it is time. If you were here for our pre-concert chat, I forgot there's one more thing. There's something to look forward to in this concert, and I want to make sure that nobody is scared or confused when we get to the John Philip Sousa glasses, People in Glass Houses. Thank you. One of my favorite parts of this piece is that there will be a pop gun performance by our principal percussionist, Kyle Sherwinski. Can you give a little demonstration? Nobody leave when you hear that. But that is my favorite part of the concert, so be on the lookout. In addition to the pop gun, Kyle does a lot for our organization. Not only does he play principal percussion, handle all of the setups, but he can manhandle a U-Haul in rain or shine, let me tell you. So Kyle, on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for all that you do for us. Now we are delighted to welcome Nash McCutchen, Palmacia's very own. Not only does she have a big heart for the community, a big heart for music, but she is the true winner of our dating challenge, and she is married to our music director, Matt McCutchen. Please give her a nice warm welcome.
Good evening. This evening's program is a wonderful collection of music by American composers. Some, like John Philip Sousa and Stephen Foster, are names that have been beloved in concert halls and bandstands for decades. We will also perform a piece by William Grant Still, who was a historically significant composer whose music deserves to take its rightful place among our country's finest offerings. We are also excited to present pieces by 3 current composers, John Dupuy, Joshua Hobbs, and Aline Rodriguez, who are here tonight to share their fresh ideas and voices with us. So before we begin, please rise if you are able as we honor America with the playing of our national anthem. We are kicking off tonight's program with something special, a bold and exciting new piece that's only been performed once before this weekend. This dynamic fanfare was written for the Pinnacle Winds, a professional wind band in Kansas City founded by John Carmichael, the founder of the Florida Wind Band. The composer, John Dupuy, holds degrees in music education, composition, and conducting from the University of South Florida. He currently serves as music supervisor for Volusia County Public Schools, and we're thrilled to have him here with us tonight. Please give a warm welcome to John Dupuy as he takes the podium to conduct his original work, Pinnacle Winds Fanfare. Up next, we're proud to present a world premiere of two Tampa Bay artists. This work began as an original folk song by Edwin Taylor, the music director at Tampa's St. Mark's Episcopal Church. In 1979, Mr. Taylor began writing folk songs that captured the feeling of home, eventually putting together a heartfelt collection titled Songs from Home. Earlier this year, composer Alain Rodriguez selected the very first of those songs to arrange for wind band as part of his master's work at USF. The result is a touching and beautifully crafted piece we're honored to debut tonight. We are fortunate to have both composers with us this evening, and as a special addition to the performance, Mr. Taylor has agreed to play song number 1, so you can hear the original before you hear the fantasy. So without further ado, please welcome Edwin Taylor to the piano and Alain Rodriguez to the podium for Fantasy on a Theme by Edwin Taylor. Our next piece brings us the voice of one of the most important American composers of the 20th century, William Grant Still. Often called the Dean of African American composers, Still was a trailblazer in every sense. Born in Little Rock, Arkansas, he studied at Wilberforce University, Oberlin, and the New England Conservatory, combining classical traditions with the rich musical heritage of his culture. His Afro-American Symphony was the first symphony by a black composer to be performed by a major orchestra. Still said of his work, "I wanted to show how the blues, so often considered a lowly expression, could be elevated to the highest musical level." Tonight, we'll perform the second movement of this groundbreaking symphony, a deeply moving section titled Sorrow. It's a musical portrait of resilience, spirit, and quiet strength. Afro-American Symphony, Movement 2, Sorrow. From one American legend to another, our next piece pays tribute to Stephen Foster, known as the father of American music. Foster's melodies are woven into the fabric of our country. Songs like My Old Kentucky Home, Oh Susanna, Camptown Races, and Old Folks at Home continue to resonate with audiences across generations. This medley brings together several of his greatest hits in a joyful celebration of classical American song. Enjoy a tribute to Stephen Foster. Now we're bringing it closer to home with a piece that holds deep personal meaning for many in Florida's music community. Red Feathered Soul was composed by Joshua Hobbs, director of bands at J.W. Mitchell High School in Pasco County. It was commissioned by longtime Florida band director Ivan Wansley in loving memory of his mother, Clara Van Wansley. This music is filled with imagery and emotion, from the woodwind flurries that suggest cardinals taking flight, to the heartfelt strains of Amazing Grace, a hymn she loved. Percussion from around the world represents her adventurous spirit and global travels. At its core, this piece is a musical portrait of a life well lived and deeply loved. Please welcome Joshua Hobbs to conduct Red Feathered Soul. If you've been to a Florida Wind Band concert before, you know we love a good Sousa march. But tonight we're switching things up. Instead of a single march, we're diving into one of Sousa's more playful celebrations, a 4-movement suite called People Who Live in Glass Houses. Composed in 1909, just before Sousa's First World Tour, this piece is full of musical toasts to various beverages and their countries of origin. Each movement is clever, spirited, and a whole lot of fun. The champagnes, the Rhine wines, the whiskeys, Scotch, Irish, bourbon, and rye, and finally, the grand convention of the cordials, wines, whiskeys, and white rock. Get ready to raise a glass, musically speaking, to people who live in glass houses. At this point in our concert, we honor the service and sacrifice of those in our nation's armed forces. If you or someone in your family has served, is currently serving, or plans to serve in any branch of the U.S. military, we invite you to stand and be recognized when your branch's song is played. United States Army. The United States Army. United States Marine Corps. United States Air Force. The United States Navy.
Good evening. My name is Dan Buffington. I'm the chairman of the board of directors for the Florida Wind Band. I want to thank each of you for attending this evening's concert, and another special thank you to our guest narrator, Matthew McCutchen. We are currently planning the 18th season of bringing high-quality performances of wind band and orchestra music to the Tampa Bay area. If you're new to joining us tonight, we thank you, and we invite you to join the family of sponsors and donors that make programs like this evening possible. For existing sponsors, you can renew your sponsorship and support by going online today at the website floridawindband.org. All donations collected, large or small, right now will help us meet our goal of achieving the Hillsborough County Arts Council and County Commissioners matching campaign. We're actively, as Tony mentioned earlier, seeking additional board members, so if any of you have wondered how you could share your time, talent, and skills to support this organization, we'd love to answer any questions you have after this evening's performance. And I can tell you that it's personally been an honor to be involved in supporting this amazing group of musicians and staff. To each of you, we extend a final thank you for attending this evening's performance, and we look forward to seeing you at future programs in the season ahead. But before you go, we have one additional arrangement for you for this evening's performance, and it's guaranteed to leave you humming all the way home. It's the National March of the United States and a true American classic. We hope you enjoy this rousing finale of Stars and Stripes Forever by John Philip Sousa.
Thank you.